Hello, early birds out there in YouTube land. If you're joining in, thank you so much. We've got about 3 minutes until we're going to go ahead and get started. But welcome to the North Carolina Democratic Party's Defend Our Democracy Zoom call. And thank you so much to everybody who's shown up tonight. If you know folks that should be on here that may not be tuning into us on YouTube, please feel free to share the link. Make sure you share it on your social medias right now. Tell other folks to join us live. We want to make sure that we're reaching as many audiences as possible tonight. And also, we'll make sure that you've got the link afterwards so that you can send it out to family and friends and people that you know that may be concerned about what's happening right now, both in North Carolina and in our nation. Stay tuned, folks, for just a little bit longer. Again, if you're just joining us, thank you so much for getting on. We are going to make sure that we've got all of our folks on here, making sure you share out the live stream and the link. We know it's a little bit weird to use YouTube Live instead of a Zoom call, but we had so many folks that signed up to join us tonight that we could not possibly fit you all in a Zoom call. So we really appreciate the excitement and the energy on the ground. And once again, please feel free to share that YouTube link with folks in the or folks on your social media accounts, everybody. Next time I'll make sure for my participants on here while we wait that we've got some good funky music going on or something like that. Mhm. Hello again, folks. If you are just now joining us, thank you so much for doing so. We're going to get started in just a few moments. Everybody enough time to log on with us, make sure they find the YouTube live stream and that they're engaged with the North Carolina Democrats tonight. But thank you all so much for finding us on YouTube and for finding us the link in your email address, hopefully. We really appreciate it. And we're going to get started again in just a few moments, everybody. Feel free to type into the YouTube chat box though, or in the, or not chat box, but in the YouTube comment section where you're calling in from. If you can, and if you're logged in on YouTube, feel free to make a comment about where you might be. We'd love to make sure that we comment back to you and see if we can help you find your local county party or precinct meeting that's going on right now in North Carolina too. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. We're going to wait one more minute just to catch the late birds that might be. I had early birds on here earlier, but I might have some late birds now. So thank you all for your patience, and we're going to get started in just one more minute. All right, North Carolina Democrats. Thank you all so much for waiting. We are really excited to go ahead and kick off our Defend Our Democracy Zoom call here tonight. My name is Anderson Clayton. I have the honor and privilege of being your state party chair, and I'm excited to be able to introduce our guests that we have here with us this evening. Tonight, you're going to hear from our fantastic Supreme Court Justice Allison Riggs, who is still in the fight of her life against Republicans trying to steal her election. And we're also going to be able to hear from our wonderful State Senator Jay Shodery, who is going to give us an update from the North Carolina State Senate floor, along with our fantastic Representative Leader Robert Reeves, who is our House Minority Leader right now in the General Assembly, also helping fight off Republicans and their most egregious attempts to strip Democrats of power in our state legislature right now. So we got a full and a stacked night for you. But the other thing that we're going to be able to tell you all tonight is, what can you do about what's happening right now? How can you get involved? What are the powers that you have, being someone right now that's concerned about what's going on in the world, that also feels the weight of the Trump administration and the threat every day that Republicans right now are posing to people across communities that we deeply, deeply care about. And so I'm very excited to turn it over to our Supreme Court Justice Allison Riggs, who's going to give you a state of the race update about her Supreme Court Justice race, the fight that we're in right now against Republicans in our courts, and how you can take some action right now and every way. Justice Riggs, thank you for your work, and thank you for being on with us tonight.
Thank you, Chair Clayton. Hello, Democrats. It is so lovely to get to see you all for a few minutes this slightly rainy Monday evening. I know that over 600 of you joined in a Zoom watch party as our case got argued in the North Carolina Court of Appeals on Friday, and I cannot tell you what it meant to me, what it has meant to those of us fighting for a judiciary that cares about people and will stand firm for constitutional rights. I'm just so grateful to be in this movement with you all, fighting for fair courts and fighting for an independent judiciary that will not be bullied and will not back down from doing what's right. So as many of you, 600 plus of you, found out on Friday, my case was argued in the North Carolina Court of Appeals. We got some tough questions. There are judges, three judges, 2 Republican and 1 Democratic, who heard my case. And I don't know when they will rule. I don't know how they will rule, but I expect them to move quickly. So we expect that we could get a ruling from the North Carolina Court of Appeals sometime in the next week or 2. Could stretch out longer. This is always one of the harder parts of a legal fight, is maintaining engagement and staying up to speed when there can be lulls with things happening. But we are committed to fighting this every step of the way, not giving an inch on your constitutional rights, on the rights of the over 68,000 voters whose fundamental right to be heard in the political process is at risk in this silly litigation. And we know that the next step is very likely the North Carolina Supreme Court. The North Carolina Supreme Court is, of course, the body that stayed the certification of my election despite me winning, and that win being confirmed by 2 independent recounts. We have worked hard to make sure that whatever the end result is in the state courts, that we are preserving our ability to fight this all the way through federal court. And normally you don't see appeals from state court to federal court, but just so you know, if what comes out of the state courts, the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court, violate voters' federal rights, so our military voters, voters who've been voting for decades and have never had any issue voting, if there is anything that infringes upon their rights, we will be going straight to federal court. And the federal courts have said they will hear our claims if the state courts do anything like that. So what I want you to take away from this is we're in this for the long haul. This is not going to be a fight that resolves tomorrow. We sort of came to terms with that in February. The North Carolina Democratic Party has been an incredible partner in all of this. I am not doing this alone. I am doing it with your North Carolina Democratic Party, with all of the chairs. I know this is a little bit cheesy, but Carteret County Dems sent me this lovely card and a local artist's duck on the back. I must have told someone, like, ducks are really metaphorically significant for me. One, because ducks are always paddling wildly under the water, but they look cool as a cucumber above water. And the other thing is we're unflappable. Water off a duck's back. So I say that not to be cheesy, but just to let you know that your kindnesses mean the world to me. And I know that I'm not doing this alone. I need you to know that this is part of this was always going to be multi-cycle work. We won this election. We did the first thing we need to do to win back our courts in the 2028 election before the next round of regular redistricting. We knocked over that first domino. While I don't we shouldn't have to be fighting this fight and defending these voters. What I can promise you is I will be unrelenting in making sure that there is political accountability for this. We will never allow judges to run again without being crystal clear about whether they are committed to upholding the rule of law, respecting the outcomes of elections, and willing to defend your constitutional rights, even if you didn't vote for them. Even if they don't agree with you. That's what a fair, independent judiciary looks like. It's what the North Carolina Democratic Party is offering voters. And so we will turn this challenge into long-term success. And I promise you that I'm not going anywhere. I am going to be loud. I am going to be out there with you every step of the way, talking you through what's happening, explaining it so it's accessible and you can talk to folks about it. You'll see me and Justice Anita Earls, who's running for re-election in 2026, all over the place because we believe in an accountable and transparent judiciary. And we know that you all are really critical to helping us do that and to make North Carolina a place that we can really be proud of, particularly in very challenging times. So thank you all for your kindness, your support. Please make sure to connect with my campaign either by email or on social media. And I'm going to leave so folks can have a conversation without me present and get into nitty-gritty of strategies that I may not need to be here for. So thank you all. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the incredible NCDP staff. And I'm sure I'll see you on the ground soon. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much, Justice Riggs, for your energy and your commitment to this fight. I hope everyone across North Carolina is extremely grateful for the fact that we have such a true fighter in this race and in this with us, because otherwise I think that anybody who has been fighting for an election 5 months after that they have won it has to have the grit of somebody that is just indefensible, or defendable to no extent. There we go, is what I should say. So I just really appreciate you, Justice Riggs, and I know that North Carolina Democrats do across the state too. So just thank you. I'm going to pass it over to my first vice chair, Jonah Garson, everybody, who's going to tell you all a little bit about, now that you've heard the state of the race, where we currently sit in our court fight right now, how can you all take action and get involved with what's happening in our courts? So Jonah, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Clayton. So, y'all, so many folks ask us very specifically, what can we do right now on the court fight here in North Carolina? You don't need to sell us on this being one of the most important things we're doing right now. We know that this litigation that Judge Griffin has brought came right from the Trump legal team's playbook. We know that North Carolina is a test case right now and that they will probably roll this litigation out elsewhere, and that we are in many ways, in many senses, fighting this fight for the rest of the country. Okay, so I have two quick calls to action. Number one is going to be about money. Number two is going to be about volunteering. Okay, so number one, this litigation, which has been designed just as much to disenfranchise voters, overturn an election, as it is to be about just grinding us down, is costing us something like $3 million. That's nuts. And that money we've raised, it's mainly been from the party, it's been from Justice Allison Riggs, but we've really had to hustle to raise this money so that we can give it our all in fighting it out in the courtroom. And frankly, this North Carolina Democratic Party that we've built, that many of y'all have a hand in building, the thing we are proudest of is having a party, having an organization that is capable of fighting and winning some of the toughest fights, both at the ballot box and in the courtroom. And we have an amazing legal team that has done amazing work, but we really, really actually do need your help. It has been a tough row to hoe. It has not always been water off a duck's back for some of us over here. And so call to action number one is, if you have money to spare, please, please contribute what you can to our legal defense fund. And please tell other folks to do the same. Okay. That is one important way to contribute. Okay. Moving beyond money. We are and have been, since Judge Griffin brought this challenge to try to disenfranchise all of these voters in North Carolina, we have been calling through the quote Griffin list, the list of those 66,000 that Judge Griffin and the NCGOP and the National GOP are working to disenfranchise. It is really, really, really important that we work this list hard. A couple of reasons. Number one, we're helping empower voters to tell their story. Number two, and this matters very much for electoral bottom lines. Y'all know Justice Allison Riggs won her race by 735 votes or so. These races are won or lost by razor thin margins. And by calling through this list, you're going to be talking to a lot of people who, there's still some people who do not know they're on the list, first of all. But you're going to be talking to people who, whether or not they know they're on the list, they're going to be hella upset about what GOP is trying to do to them, is trying to do to their rights. They're going to want someone to talk to, and they are going to know, if they know that the GOP has tried to do this with their right to vote, then they are going to be more likely to vote for Democratic candidates committed to democracy, the Constitution, of the rule of the law and rule of law in 2026 and 2028. So next opportunity is going to be Monday, April 7th at 6 p.m. You'll have a good training. If you've never done this kind of work before, you'll have a good script. So that's the volunteer ask. So in review, donate money if you can to our legal defense fund, number one. Number two, join our phone bank on Monday at 6 p.m. on Zoom to call through the Griffin list. Thank you. Back to you, Chair Clayton.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Gerson. I deeply appreciate your energy. And also, I hope that folks will sign up and help us phone bank. The number one way to defeat Donald Trump in 2026 is to defeat him in North Carolina in 2025. And that means we defeat him by defeating this lawsuit and also helping people make sure that they know that their votes are being challenged. What's going to happen is that if this lawsuit and Republicans are successful in North Carolina, this is the playbook that Jonah mentioned that they are going to ship into other states and try to deny election results. North Carolina is the ground zone of where Cleta Mitchell and the Election Integrity Network are still challenging elections to try to figure out what can we take and what can we utilize to deny them again in 2026. And if they're successful here, they won't have to deny elections anymore. They'll be able to litigate away their losses. And so we know that it's deeply important, the work that we're doing in North Carolina, and it's why the Zoom call and it's why the education for this is around our Supreme Courts. But I also want to talk to you all about another branch of government tonight that impacts North Carolinians and people across this state more than we can ever imagine, which is our state legislature. And so I'm honored to be joined on here by Senator Jay Chaudhary, who is coming out of our North Carolina State Senate in leadership to be able to talk to you all about what's going on, a legislative update from the ground in the North Carolina State Senate, and also what he'd like for people across North Carolina to know about what's happening right now in his chamber. So Senator Chaudhary, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for leading us into the 2026 midterm election that's going to be incredibly important. I'm excited to see the energy on the ground. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Had the opportunity to attend my precinct meeting last night and know that our Democratic precinct leaders and volunteers are the heart and soul of our Democratic Party. So really appreciate it. Two things I want to talk about. One is what's going on in the North Carolina State Senate. Leader Reeves will talk about what's going on in the House. In many ways, I think many of the folks on the call know that the playbook from the governing majority is pretty predictable. It's a combination of again pushing for cultural issues that really seek to divide our state. And then, secondly, we will see a budget fight where we will see misplaced priorities and the fact that we will continue to underinvest in public education and our people. Very quick, just kind of focusing on kind of the cultural issues. We've seen an attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion in our public schools. The General Assembly, the State Senate passed a bill seeking to eliminate that. We've also just last week saw an effort to now pass permitless carry, which essentially means now that you can carry a concealed weapon without having a permit or a training, essentially turning our state into the wild, wild west. I will say, for those who had the opportunity to listen to the floor debate that happened in the Senate, or even read the coverage, Leader Sidney Batch, the new Senate Democratic leader, did an incredible job leading our team, making the arguments and running a number of amendments that I think really show Republicans being out of touch when it comes to gun reform and access to guns. Things like a universal background check that the Republicans did not allow to be voted on the floor, not allowing somebody that has a domestic violence record to have access to guns. So very proud to serve with our Senate Democrats as we voiced our concerns about that bill. Last bill I will mention before just briefly talking about the budget is there's an effort. Again, we've seen a pattern of this in our state Senate, is to engage in power grabs. This time they've been going after Attorney General Jeff Jackson's ability to litigate executive orders. As many of you know, Attorney General Jackson has filed 4 lawsuits against the Trump administration and executive orders. Many of these actually focus on really protecting our economy and our universities. One that seeks to stop the ability of the Trump administration to make cuts, such as the cuts to our universities, including National Institute of Health funding. As it turns out, if we didn't have the Attorney General file those lawsuits, our states also seek to not be able to recover or get that money back. And fortunately, Attorney General Jackson's been very successful in the filing of these lawsuits. Just to put things in perspective, the universities in our triangle get $1.5 billion in federal funding. The ability to not get those dollars really kind of cripples the economy of North Carolina, because we know as Democrats the winning formula is having a partnership between business, university, and government, and that's always been the winning formula. When we break 2 of those legs, the government leg and the university leg, we all collapse. Last thing I'll talk about is the budget. The Senate will write the budget this year. There are 3 things to be on the lookout for that I think is going to make it very difficult for us to make the investments that we need to. And this is why it's important for us to not to have additional tax cuts. But one is that we have a projection for a budget deficit 2 years out, probably the closest that I've seen in my mind in the drop in revenue that we're going to see in 2 years. Secondly, I don't need to tell the folks on the call tonight that that Congress now has passed a budget framework that's going to include additional cuts that are going to impact our state cuts, including potential cuts to Medicaid that could undo the Medicaid program, in which we've been able to expand Medicaid to 640,000 North Carolinians. And lastly, we have the budgetary pressures of continuing to help our friends out west through Helene. So certainly pay attention as we try to as Democrats tried to fight and make the argument. Governor Stein has made this argument as well, that we don't need additional tax cuts. We need to stop with the tax cuts, and we need to refocus our priorities on investing in giving our teachers a pay raise, giving our state employees a pay raise, making the investments we need to for a high growth state. Last thing I will say is, as we think about what we can do going forward, number one, I would say certainly keep an eye out on people that I think really need help. I think we're going to see people that are going to go into unemployment. I mean, we've seen some of that impact folks already. Governor Stein has set up a website for folks that are seeking employment. If you know people that have been impacted by the Trump administration cuts, please don't hesitate to contact other Senate Democrats or contact Governor Stein's office. And secondly, to continue to provide the help that we need for our friends out in Helene. Second thing I would say is, please tell your friends not to be an ostrich. I know that the news cycle can be overwhelming, but we've got to be more engaged now than ever. We got to talk to everyone. And last thing I'll remind folks is as we go into this midterm, it's important to remind folks that Republicans own everything. Everything that is happening is owned by Republicans at the federal level and at the state level. And so pay attention to what's happening. If you have stories, please share those stories with us. We think we've got a great story to tell about our vision for a better North Carolina versus really the chaos that we're experiencing right now, both at the state and federal level. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Clayton.
Thank you so much, Senator. Y'all can understand why he's in our leadership now, right? The amount of information and knowledge that he presents, and also in such a way that doesn't freak you out, but it makes you feel like, okay, Democrats have done great things and they continue to do it as long as they have the power to do it. And so thank you, Senator Chaudhary, for taking time to join us tonight and just all of the work that you're doing in the state legislature each and every day. We really appreciate you for it. And next time we'll hand it over to our fantastic leader, Robert Reeves, who I see is on here with us too tonight to give us an update about what's happening in the state house, how Democrats are fighting back, and what Republicans are doing to the people in North Carolina right now. Leader Reeves, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Clayton. I appreciate it. And good to see everybody. Good to see your leadership team here also, and appreciate all that you guys are doing. I know that the folks we work against sometimes are making your lives just as hard as ours. So we appreciate you staying in the fight for another term. I'm glad to see all of you back. For those of you who are wondering what's going on in the House, not very different from what's going on in the Senate. I will give some credit where credit is due, is that the Senate seems to be fighting real hard for the culture war title. They're running culture war bills faster than anybody ever has, I think, in the history of legislature. But, you know, at some point, they'll recognize that that's not helping people get jobs. That's not helping people get higher wages. That's not helping people live better. That's not helping the folks out west. That's not helping anybody get into housing. That's not helping anybody's public education. But until they learn that, thank you, Jay, and all of you guys for the fight that you're putting up. In the House, what we're doing is we're trying to make sure that we do several things on several fronts so that folks know that we're still here for you. One, we're filing bills to show North Carolinians not only what we believe in, but to show North Carolinians that there are people still in elected office that believe in the same things they do. Because the folks in North Carolina overwhelmingly have made it clear they don't want to hear about what decisions big government has for how they live their lives, what they do in their bedrooms, how their public education goes, things of that sort, what they're getting taught, what books they're going to burn today because the book did something to hurt their feelings, all these kind of things. They understand that that's not what they want, but unfortunately, the people in the majority keep doing that. So we're going to keep filing bills talking about lower taxes for those of us that work every day, filing bills that show that not only that you should be able to get the health care that you need, but on top of getting the health care that you need to keep government out of your doctor's office. You've got to make decisions that are right for you. And when it comes down to control of your body and your life, you should be the one making decisions, not some guy sitting in Raleigh that's never met you, hasn't heard about you, and doesn't seem to care about you because he's not asking your opinion. We're speaking out on bad legislation that is clearly harmful for our state, like this permitless carry bill that Jay's talked about already, where anybody 18 can carry a concealed handgun without any registration or training. And let me change that. Almost anybody, because I'm sure at some point in time, Republicans will get a hold of this and they'll say, no, there's one person who can't have a gun in North Carolina. Thank you. But everybody, when you think about it, nothing bad, right, has ever happened with an 18-year-old being able to have access to a gun with no training, unfettered, and do what he wants to. No problems there. Yeah. And so then we've got House and Senate Democrats have been doing a good job of trying to hold town halls. We had our first big one in the House that was out in Buncombe County, well attended. We're going to keep holding those because even though your congressmen and women refuse to hold town halls to be held accountable for the decisions that they're making, because be really clear, Democrats, don't make the mistake of making this about Donald Trump. Whoever they had in office this year would be doing the exact same things to you right now because they've made a decision that the other 99% of us don't matter anymore. They're fine cutting $500 million out of a federal program that feeds children, that helps people, that keeps disabled people in the workforce, things like that. So they're fine doing that and telling you they're doing it because they need to save money, but then turn around and give a $3 billion contract to one of their buddies. So you can't tell me you don't have the money at the same time that you're sitting here making a billionaire another couple of $1 billion for his investment in your campaign. So that's why we're holding these town halls. We want you to be heard. We want you to have a chance to talk out. And we want to call out the overreach that you're seeing from our federal government so that you know what's happening in Washington and in Raleigh. And again, if you are an elected Republican right now, you've got a chance to stop this. And every day you don't speak out is a day you should be held accountable. So don't fall for the okie doke. Because what's going to happen around campaign time is they're going to say, well, that was Trump. And you know, I'm not one of those guys. They've had years to tell us they're not those guys. So at some point in time, that's who you are. At some point in time, you're not hanging out with a bad crowd. You're the bad crowd. You're the bad kid. So stop blaming everybody else. That's my editorial. I'll stop there. And then finally, we're working behind the scenes to try to help support bills that do make sense. Look at what came out of the House, and I think this is significant. Out of the House, when we passed our relief bill, no poison pills, no power grabs, no additional anything in that bill, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due. That was a concerted effort of both sides working together and saying there should be some things that are nonpartisan. We're going to have to spend $59 billion to get the West back on its feet. That shouldn't be about partisan games. We sent it to the Senate, and it came back with partisan games. So again, where we can work and get good things done for North Carolinians, that's what we're going to do. But where we've got to continue to call people out on the bad things that are getting done by all of our elected officials on that side of the aisle, we're going to continue to call them out. So don't think that we're ever going to shy away from standing against overreach, that we're going to stop standing up against bad policy. And we are going to be here for you. Make sure your voices are heard, and we're going to make sure that we keep fighting during this session, because Lord knows where we'll be headed if people stop fighting. So that's my synopsis of what's going on in the House. I appreciate it. And Chair Clayton, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Leader Reeves. And if you and Senator Choudhury have time to hang out, we're going to be able to take questions from the YouTube chat box that'll be able to come in. So if any of the folks streaming this online, if you've got questions from our legislators and you'd like to put them in, feel free to type them in YouTube or the comment section YouTube, and our staff is going to be taking those out of there and also putting them so that we can see them too on our screen. So I'm going to pass it over right now to Dr. Hardy, because I know that you just heard what the hell's going wrong, honestly, and where Republicans are hitting us at every angle, but also what can you do about it, and how can you join, and how can you help in what's going on right now. So our fantastic second vice chair, Dr. Kimberly Hardy, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Chair Clayton, and thanks to our amazing legislators for putting up a fight that I cannot even imagine must be so grueling every single day, but we very much appreciate you. So what can you do to help out? Here's how you can take action to support the Democratic legislators' work. Show the GOP that we're watching. I know you've probably seen this before. We're going to put it out there again. We're packing the gallery on March 26th. This gives us an opportunity to look right into their faces while they're doing all sorts of unscrupulous things with this legislation. And we want them to know that we are watching. We will hold them accountable at the ballot box, but we will not wait for the ballot box to let them know that we are there. So their next opportunity for you to join us is Wednesday, March 26th from 12 to 2. You can help us by showing up in force, in numbers, to pack the gallery. And if you need more information, there'll be links dropped in for you all to sign up for that. But Wednesday, March 26th, 12 to 2 p.m. Also, we're laying the important groundwork for future elections so that we can build the power we need. Let's hold Thom Tillis accountable. We need to flip his seat in 2026. He is not being a good steward of that seat, and we need to take it from him. We don't know yet who's going to run against him, but we do know that he has to go. And voters are not going to like what he's been up to when we tell them what it is. And so how are we going to do that? We're going to go on a canvas. So our regional organizing director and their wonderful regional organizing directors are doing this thing called an accountability canvas for Thom Tillis, where we're going to go knock on doors to let the neighbors know what he's really been up to in Washington. This is going to be the most watched Senate race in the country. North Carolina has an opportunity to send him home and send somebody to DC on our behalf who is actually going to represent us and our values. So you can sign up for one of those. If you would like to go to a canvas near you, then you can contact RODS, R-O-D-S, at ncdp.org, and we'll schedule one, set one up for you, or you can find out where some are already scheduled to occur. And then, like Senator Chowdhury said, you have to be a part of the leadership. And the most granular and impactful level of leadership really is the precinct. And so we'd like you to show up at your next party meeting and precinct meetings. Those meetings are happening right now. Yours is probably still upcoming. If it hasn't already passed, there's an opportunity for you to get involved. Winning in the long term means talking to as many voters as possible consistently year round. And that means we have to mobilize as many volunteers as possible to keep them engaged. And so precinct meetings are happening everywhere in the state. And we would very much appreciate it if you all would make sure that you get to your precinct meetings. And then bring other people to those meetings with you. It is very important to have as many people represented in those spaces as possible and to have their voices be a part of this. This is a way that you can get involved. And so there will be links available for all you all to find your local meeting. But if you go to ncdp.org/precincts, you can actually look up your precinct meeting that way. And so that's it. These are ways that you can get involved in ways that are actually meaningful and that happen everywhere from the local level to the state level and the federal level. So hope to see you all out there. And with that, I pass it back over to Chair Clayton.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harding. So we're catching some comments coming in from the chat box, as you all just heard. And I know right now that folks are looking for a lot of different ways to get involved, right? You may say, Anderson, I am tired of canvassing and I am tired of phone calls. And I get that. But what I want to make sure that everybody understands is that the only way out of the situation that we're in right now is through local organizing and community building. And we do that by talking face to face with our neighbors about making sure that folks know that the Democratic Party and rebuilding the brand of our party, especially in places like rural North Carolina right now, is reliant on whether or not we're out there talking to people in our communities each and every day. But the other side to that is also knowing that we are out in the streets too. And so a very big shout out to Indivisible North Carolina, because we just hosted last week in Wake County, Bull City Indivisible, along with Wake County Indivisible, hosted an amazing open chair town hall. We also had one in Greensboro and Guilford County not too long ago, late last week. Chuck Edwards hosted a town hall that all of you in Western North Carolina came out to by the thousands. And we know that Representative Alma Adams hosted one in Charlotte not too long ago. Congresswoman Deborah Ross and Congresswoman Valerie Foushee are also hosting them right now in Wake County and in Durham counties. They're going to be back in April when the April recess happens for our congressional seats, or congressional recess happens, everybody. There we go. But just so you all know that those are happening on the other end, and that Indivisible is also hosting a nationwide day of action on April the 5th. So everybody can either be coming to Raleigh or to Charlotte. I know that I've seen those two already up and active, and I know that they're going to be posting those, and we'll make sure to send out the links after this too. If you feel like you need to put your feet to the pavement and make sure that you're joining in this with us also in person as well, and not just in your own community too on the doors. I know that we had some questions in the chat box come through about gerrymandering and how do we stop Republican gerrymandering in North Carolina. I'm going to also let Leader Reeves or Senator Chowdhury talk about this one too if they'd like to. But the number one thing that I would tell you all is that this last election cycle, we did one of the first steps that we needed to in order to defeat and to pull back away from Republican gerrymandering and the power that they have to do that in North Carolina. And that was by maintaining our North Carolina Supreme Court seat with Justice Allison Riggs. Our next step is to make sure that we maintain and that we keep another Democratic Supreme Court justice in Anita Earls this upcoming year in 2026, because we know that that election cycle is going to be extremely important, not just for our U.S. Senate seat, but also to make sure that we hold Democratic power again on the North Carolina Supreme Court. And in 2028, we have 3 Republican seats that will be up on the North Carolina Supreme Court. Everything we're doing in 2024 and 2026 is prepping us for the energy and the momentum that we're going to need to make sure that we're fighting back against the corruption in our courts in the biggest way in 2028, to make sure that we take a Democratic majority on our state Supreme Court, and so that we can ungerrymander our state by reversing the decision that came down from a 2023 Supreme Court, a 2023 Republican-dominated Supreme Court that legalized partisan and racial gerrymandering in the state of North Carolina again, and give the ability back to the people in North Carolina to have fair and equal representation in our state legislature and also in our congressional maps and how they are drawn. Every bit of work that we are doing right now on the ground in North Carolina is geared up for the long-term fight that we have in this state, but also the short-term goals that we need your help with to make sure that North Carolina is a better place and ends up also being the place that people do not have to leave, but they can stay in, especially young people across North Carolina. Senator Chaudhary and Representative Reeves, do y'all have anything to add to that, though, about gerrymandering, how we defer legislators in your own caucus this last year that helped us break a Republican supermajority in the state house potentially too?
Yeah, I'll just quickly underscore what you said, Chair Clayton, is and Leader Reeves talked about this. I mean, we all have to stay in the fight, and the fight, as you outlined, is not only in 2026, but it's in 2028, because the courts are the greatest check that we have in making sure that we have fair maps. And I can't reiterate that. And I know folks may feel like they're tired, and I think that's why calls like this are really, really important, is because we've got to stay focused on the long game. And the long game for us is continuing to fight to make sure that we take the courts back.
And I think the only thing I would add to what both of you have said is simply this is, we've got to remember that we're only going to win with each other. And I think that, to me, is going to be the hardest fight that we've got. We're harder on each other than we are sometimes on the folks that got us here. And that's what we've got to remember. Part of being a Democrat is imperfection. And that means that we have ideals and things that we care about and what we want to see in people. But sometimes the best way to get there is to understand we've got to do it together and to show it by example. So what I'm just saying is this, guys, it's going to be tough. You've got billionaires who are spending billions of dollars to make you hate each other. And that's just it. And when you see things pop up on social media, commercials and stuff, you can rest assured that there is a push to make us fight within ourselves. And what we've got to understand, there is only one group of people who have put this country where it is. And they have spent directly the last 15 years and honestly the last 50 years putting this plan in place. And they've got a ton of money. And so, one of the complaints I hear from people all the time is, I don't see the Democrats are doing anything. Well, it's because it takes money to get on the airwaves. You look at, Jeff Bezos buying, I think he bought the Post. Was that it, Jay?
Yes.
And then, you've got the billionaire that bought the LA Times. You've got, Fox News on 24/7 everywhere. I turn my Samsung TV on. I've never watched Fox News on a regular basis. And the first recommended channel is always Fox News. Like, those are the things you're going against. But what people believe in are each other. So just please stay together, keep our Big Ten a Big Ten, and let's win this thing together. And that's how you beat gerrymandering. It's simply by flipping, because you're not going to get them to do the right thing.
And we know that we had an amazing year last year, especially because the Republicans had control over drawing our state house and state Senate maps, right? And they were worse drawn than they were in 2018, 2020, and 2022 from everything that we can tell. And Republicans were still able to, Democrats were still able to beat back a Republican supermajority in the state house under those maps. And it's thanks to people like Representative Lindsey Prather, who held down an R+3 district in Western North Carolina, right there in Buncombe County and a little outside of it, because people got on the ground, and Lindsey was an amazing candidate at being able to really help people understand that she was there to help them, especially after Hurricane Helene to come through. It came from people like Representative Dante Pittman, right, in Eastern North Carolina out of Wilson County, and also people out of Bryan Conn, Lane, Granville, and Vance County areas too, that were able to really advance our legislature. And also a very big shout out to Senator Terrence Everett, who also eked out an amazing win in our state Senate this year too, to give Democrats another seat in our state Senate. But they did that under impeccable circumstances, to be honest with y'all. And I think that it is through the power of people like you all who were out there knocking doors with us last year, who believed in putting in more emphasis on the bottom of the ballot and making sure that we know that all politics is local, right? I have a question for Leader Reeves and for Senator Chaudhary. For the people that are on here tonight, what do you think is the best thing that folks can be doing right now to really contribute back and to give back to their communities, to their party, or also just to help you all in the state legislature?
I'll lead on that. I can tell you, is keep educating folks. That's the biggest thing that we're working against right now, is making sure people understand what bad things are happening and how it affects them in particular. Because that's how you motivate people. There's a difference between somebody saying, I agree with you on an idea, and somebody saying, that's made me so angry, I'm going to get out here and do something. So every time you've got a chance to educate folks, even if you got to have uncomfortable conversations, talk to them, let them know what's going on, let them know how it's affecting them and how it's affecting the community.
Yeah, Chair Clayton,
Thank you, Reeves. Senator Trevor?
I would, I would say, I would say that it's really important to remind folks of the importance that the General Assembly and the State House and the State Senate have on people's lives. And I do not want to understate the complete chaos that we are seeing at the federal level, and ultimately the impact that it's going to have on all of us and is already having on all of us. But just think about the types of bills that Leader Reeves and I were just talking about today: permitless carry, attacks on our public school systems, unaccountable vouchers, hundreds of millions of dollars that are being spent on folks, taking away the Attorney General's ability to litigate cases that are literally looking to protect our economy and protect our public universities. We've got to come to terms that the way that we win is from a bottom up approach and not from a top down approach. And that's why these conversations that Leader Reeves are talking about are so important. But we also know, as you talked about, that it's those conversations that are allowing us to win in gerrymandered districts. And so Senator Woodson Bradley, for example, in Mecklenburg County won by 204 votes, right? So that's an illustration. We know that every vote counts, and we can always go back to even state Senate districts where we barely lost. We lost by less than 2,000 votes. So we know that those conversations make a real difference. And so we got to continue build that bottom up approach and as we go into 2026.
Absolutely.
Chair Clayton, can I make a plug here?
Mm-hmm.
I think right now we have a Democratic Party that is better equipped than it ever has been to get folks started having those conversations on the doors, on the phones, getting people trained and feeling comfortable, even if they've never done it before. We have teams of leaders who do this all throughout the week, every week. And so my call to action, I mean, you've heard from everyone here. We have NC legislative races, and we have a Supreme Court race where the margins are such where they are won or lost by the conversations you have or don't have out there in the field. And so my call to action, our call to action, even if you have never done this before, try it. You will not regret it.
I'm going to close this out with just saying a plug, because we also had a question in the chat box around social media and how is the party out there on it? How can I be promoting Democratic causes on there too? North Carolina Democrats have got a content package that comes out every week. It's got talking points from the state party. It's got graphics that you can use to put on your own social media accounts. And so what you can do is you can go to ncdp.org, and if you scroll down on our homepage, on our webpage, you can sign up for the content package. And I know our folks will drop the link in the YouTube comments as well for folks too on here tonight. The last question that I saw come through was about protest in Charlotte. They're April 5th, Indivisible, like I said, and 5051 are doing a nationwide protest across the country. So there will be one in Raleigh, and there will also be one in Charlotte. You can look that up on 5051's website as well. And we will also send out all of the links that we put throughout tonight in a wrap up email after this to you all. Becca Zirkin is our fantastic judicial director who helped put this on tonight, and she's going to be sending out the links afterwards. So a very big thank you to the staff that are on here that helped make this Zoom possible, and we're really, really excited to be able to host more of these in the future too, to keep people connected to what's happening in the General Assembly, also what's going on with our Supreme Court fight, and how you can take action and get involved with it today. So thank you to Leader Reeves, thank you to Senator Chaudhary for being on here. I really, really appreciate it. And to the point that we made, and that Senator Chaudhary honestly made right there at the end, of how much your vote matters. Allison Riggs won the Supreme Court justice fight by 734 votes. Every single person that knocked the door, made a phone call, talked to somebody, dragged somebody to the polls last year. That is the reason why we're holding down a Democratic Supreme Court justice seat right now, folks, thanks to you, and a lot of our state legislative seats as well. So We really appreciate it. Stay in the fight with us and stay tuned for more from the Democratic Party. Thank you all for being here tonight, everybody. Bye, folks.
Thanks, everybody.